My name is Madison Rodriguez Fernandini, and I will be doing a comparative analysis of teacher unions with a case study on United Teachers of Dade. We know the story. The teaching profession, which has always been overwhelmingly female, is underpaid, under-resourced, and under-respected. It isn't an original tale and reflects centuries of patriarchy and capitalism. While quality education has always been accessible to the elite, the privatization movement paved the way for charter schools, and this tale now reflects neoliberalism, where there is a growing threat to public education, and with it is teachers. Now add decades of budget cuts, decreased employment benefits, slashes to healthcare, low state spending per student, under-equipped classrooms, school choice, the expansion of charter schools, and so-called right-to-work laws, and that's how we arrive in the Red for Ed movement. Early in 2018, teachers in West Virginia were given a new contract for the following school year that included very high healthcare premiums and no increases in their salaries. And so, they went on a statewide strike. The Red for Ed movement quickly spread across the country. The demands were similar: smaller classrooms, larger school budgets, and increase in pay, but the outcomes varied. In order of when they started: West Virginia, Kentucky, Oklahoma, Arizona, Colorado, North Carolina. The strikes ranged between 1 day and 16 days. Some had no tangible results. Others ranged between a 2 and 20% raise across 1 to 2 years. There were more developments on Red for Ed in other states that started back up again in 2019. But all of this happened in less than 3 months in 2018. It was very inspiring and mobilized teachers across the country to unionize. So it begs the question, where was Florida in all this? Or at least Miami-Dade County Public Schools Teachers Union, United Teachers of Dade, given that it is the 4th largest school district in the country. UTD was busy lobbying to get Referendum 362 approved, creating a PAC to raise over $700,000 and mobilizing over 1,000 teachers. It passed with 71% in the November election vote. It would give teachers between a $5,000 and $16,000 supplement based on pay scale across 4 years. The new contract claimed to freeze increases in healthcare premiums and co-pays while still subsidizing for dependent care. However, this exploited middle career teachers who saw increases in their healthcare premiums anyway, which the referendum basically paid for. The referendum will have to pass again in 2022, so this is not an actual raise. And given the pandemic, it will be difficult to convince people to agree to be taxed more for teachers to have supplement to their salaries. When the referendum passed, it was also the year that UTD was about to be disbanded by a right-wing pro-charter administration should it not have at least 51% membership. So what is it doing wrong? But before Red for Ed, there was already good organizing happening in teacher unions around a working class politic. The focus will be on 3 specific unions who are successful in their own right and have different state and city demographics. United Teachers Los Angeles in the blue state of California. Chicago Teachers Union in the historically red turned blue due to Cook County, state of Illinois, and Durham Association of Educators in the red state of North Carolina. Prior to the infamous 2012 Chicago Teachers Union strike, CTU had become complacent, failed to mobilize its membership, and had politically atrophied. They were severely restricted in what they could negotiate regarding wages, benefits, class size, pedagogy, and working conditions. Seniority was eliminated. Thus, the Caucus of Rank-and-File Educators, CORE, was born, a small group of teachers and paraprofessionals who came together to study and organize for change against neoliberal school reform. And so they studied, from neoliberalism and global capitalism, organizational racism and its relationship to educational restructuring and urban development in Chicago, to what kind of teacher union and public education activists they should be seeking to create. They wanted to make sure to not be heavily focused on economic issues or create a heavy hierarchy that neglected its membership. They also made sure to build alliances with community groups that dealt with broader social issues and issues in the workplace. So, as neoliberal education continued its restructuring, Rahm Emanuel became mayor of Chicago. CTU saw what was being done to Chicago public schools through the Occupy framework and dubbed Emanuel Mayor 1%. Broad cuts to the music and arts were made and class sizes were increased. Along with the CEO of schools, he decided to impose a longer school day and a longer school year with no compensation for teachers and no research to support his reasoning. This led to white and affluent parents to organize, thus meeting Black and Latinx parents who were also organizing, as well as teachers, CTU, and CORE. Racial, class, and community lines have been crossed. CTU members expanded upon the strong workplace organizations that had been built up over the last 2 years and the relationship building that they had made. Before there was any strike, an appointed arbitrator recommended wage increases of almost 36% over 4 years. The city rejected it, but more importantly, so did the union. And that showed the parents and community organizations that this was never just about the salary increases to the teachers. And so on June 4th, 2012, 90% voted yes to authorize a strike. It was actually 98% in a meeting with over 4,000 CTU members present. On May 26, 2018, North Carolina teachers had a one-day strike in a right-to-work state over low salaries, low per-pupil spending by the state, and poor health care. The strike was 4 years in the making and led to tens of thousands of teachers to march up to the state capitol demanding higher wages for all faculty and support staff, including the restoration of advanced degrees, increased budgets for the school boards, reinstatement of health care benefits, and expansion of Medicaid, school repairs, and reduced large class sizes. On January of 2019, United Teachers of Los Angeles went on strike. Los Angeles has a history of organizing between teachers, parents, and students. There was a 98% authorization to strike. They demanded a fair pay raise for all, smaller class sizes, guaranteed and more nurses, counselors, social workers, and librarians in each school, less testing, more voices for parents and educators, less police presence and real support for school safety, and the establishment of 30 community schools and supports for families. The ties between the community, the teachers, and the students were clear, and the strike lasted 9 days. The union also successfully lobbied the governor over limiting charter schools. I am going to partly use critical theory to understand why CTU, UTLA, and DAE are successful in their own right and Miami's UTD is failing. Why critical theory? Well, it is grounded in the works of Karl Marx in the Frankfurt School in Germany, provides an approach to the human sciences, a conception of society, and a vision for creating social values. According to Kincheloe and McLaren, critical theory is intensely concerned with the ways power operates to dominate and shape consciousness. Many of the propaganda against the teachers on strike and bargaining for livable wages, manageable class sizes, and more have been called union thugs and worse. But when the community members, parents, and allies are there, that falls on deaf ears. According to Morrow, critical theory concerns itself with how power is used to produce alienation that inhibits the realization of human possibilities. Teacher unions have the ability to create a space for teachers to find community with one another and not feel isolated or disempowered. Critical theory also analyzes the structures that constrain human potential. Given that we are discussing education and with it human potential, I find this approach appropriate for application, especially with exploitative tenets of capitalism and neoliberalism that the teacher unions are up against. According to Kincheloe and McLaren, critical theory addresses the productive aspects of power, the ability to empower, to facilitate democracy, and to help people become reflexively aware of the social constraints on their lives. One of the first tasks that CTU did was change from a service model that processed grievances, defended the contract, and represented membership to an organizing model that unfolded a campaign, articulated a vision of quality education to parents, and built relationships with community members. They studied and grounded themselves in building an ideology. They made structural changes in the CTU that included the creation of an organizing department that was responsible for internal membership and external relations with community partners and parents. And there was a small grievance department in the beginning. It divided itself into teams for contract inspiration in 2 years and school foreclosures happening right now. They studied. The internal organizing had a goal of setting up action committees in every school, with committee members responsible for staying in touch with 10 other employees and not just teachers, but members of other unions. And again, they studied. Internal trainings of union delegates help them become more effective through workshops or contract enforcements. They studied. Assessments of how prepared a school was to strike took place. They studied. When regional meetings were held, they were open to all members. They studied. Phone bankings, relationships were built with other community groups, parent groups, coalitions, and they studied. All was for the schools Chicago's children deserved, as was the title of their now infamous document. It didn't mean they didn't lose battles, and it didn't mean that they weren't battle fatigued, but they understood the criticality. The Durham Association of Educators does an orientation for new members, and anyone that visits their page can see a century of teacher organizing, core history, CTU history, and an anti-racism resource. On a monthly basis, they meet for Read for Ed work and book study on critical education. DAE and UTLA both have Read for Ed information, how to have a one-on-one, power mapping, action circles, and more so their members can actively organize and not just listen to complaints. This is critical theory in action. With the privatization of schools, the neoliberal reform of education, and the challenge of teaching in the age of COVID-19, public educators can't rely on temporary solutions and weak alliances. To build what Chicago has, what Durham and Los Angeles is on a very real path to having, United Teachers of Dade will have to go through a dramatic change to save itself from being disbanded and actually turn into a union that is not only effective, but powerful. This will require not only critical theory, but an intense uprooting and radical transformation in how they will function internally. That will not only mean a change in power, but they will have to build transparency and a real union democracy. They will have to connect the issues of the teachers to not just a referendum and supplemental increases in pay every midterm election, but tie it to social justice and the issues of the community members that it represents. We learned this spring that without teachers in schools, nothing in a city works. They are essential workers doing the work of social justice and part of the labor community. We are in a moment where teacher unions have the ability to awaken a sleeping working class giant in this country. UTD is deep asleep, and no one is coming to save us. Thank you.